The Departed is one of Martin Scorsese's most iconic and well-loved films, up there with other gangster masterpieces like Goodfellas and Casino and Hugo. It told dual tales of two similar but opposite men, Colin Sullivan, played by Matt Damon, a young mobster sent to infiltrate the Boston police force, and Billy Costigan, a police academy recruit selected to go undercover in Jack Nicholson's crime crew. The film painted a complex web of interconnecting stories, and its maturity, style, and themes led it to become a huge hit, even winning Scorsese a Best Director and Best Picture Oscar. What many fans of Scorsese might not know, however, is that The Departed, despite its strong identity deeply rooted in the Boston crime scene, is in fact based off a previous property, the psychological crime thriller Infernal Affairs, hailing from Hong Kong.
William Monahan based his screenplay about Boston mobsters on the Japanese film Infernal Affairs.
I said Hong Kong. Premiering in 2002, Infernal Affairs was a powerhouse of a movie. It broke box office records left and right, and helped revitalize Hong Kong's flailing film industry in a time when Hollywood movies were making a lot more money, talent was flying over to the mainland, and Stephen Chow was doing his best to keep it all afloat. The film starred box office darlings Andy Lau and Tony Leung in the leading roles of Triad Mo Lau and undercover cop Chan, respectively. It even surprised audiences with some against-type casting. Anthony Wong, then mostly known for villainous roles and Category 3 films, played the friendly, fatherly Detective Wong, Chan's contact in the police, while Eric Tsang, who at this point had almost entirely made comedy movies where he played a complete idiot, shattered expectations by playing a cool, calculated triad boss on Sam. The effortlessly charismatic cast and their strong chemistry helped turn a straightforward story into a powerful psychological thriller, one that looked at morality, spiritualism, and the psychological pressures of forcing yourself to be someone you're not. So, it would seem that these two films are pretty similar. But, alas, not this time. Despite sharing a premise and both being massive hits in their respective countries, both movies differ wildly from each other. I'm going to look at some of the biggest differences between the two and what it is that makes both of them work in their own unique way. This is Remake Retrospective. The first difference between the movies people are likely to see is in their running times. Infernal Affairs' lean 100 minutes focuses its story almost entirely on its two leads, and the psychological turmoil that their jobs are taking on them. From the introductory scene in which both moles meet at a music shop to the final rooftop confrontation, Infernal Affairs strongly emphasizes that the story is about these two men. The roles played by Wong and Tsang are purely supportive, and as such they don't have a lot of layers to their personalities. But this gives Infernal Affairs a much slicker, faster-paced tone. It doesn't give itself time to dilly-dally, and as a result, the story emphasizes heavily the time crunch that both of these characters have to discover the traitor before the other can. The Departed, on the other hand, runs for almost a full butt-numbing hour more, and uses that time to throw a ton more dialogue, setup, and world-building at the wall. It's a Scorsese film, what did you expect? The world that he creates feels a lot more alive, and the story is more immersive for it, but this level of investment from the director and the audience makes it more difficult to casually watch. The Departed asks a lot more from its audience in exchange for an arguably more satisfying, filling meal. In building its world out, it gives Nicholson's mobster Costello and Martin Sheen's police captain Queenan a lot more to do. So much so that they've split Anthony Wong's role into not two, but three separate characters, because it would be strange to have a film about Boston and not have Mark Wahlberg do something, even if it is just sitting around swearing and being generally homophobic at everything. The massively bloated runtime, short really for Scorsese, also allows for a ton more violence. While Infernal Affairs keeps its tension more in the realm of cat-and-mouse chases, with only one actual gunfight, The Departed does what you'd expect from an American gangster film, and includes shootouts, bar brawls, and scuffles aplenty. If Infernal Affairs is efficient, The Departed is anything but. In true Martin Scorsese style, the movie opts for a more sprawling, verbose, and violent approach, and wants to tell something bigger. It's an epic, one that wants to explore in full detail the Boston Irish mob scene of the 1980s. Both films are deeply rooted in their country's crime thriller genres. Historically, Hong Kong's lower budgets and limited timelines encourage doing more with less, while over in the States, the release of The Godfather turned the American crime drama into a massive multi-character saga that explores the dynamic between the city, the police, the criminals, and the working-class culture of its time period. But which to watch? Hard to tell, but if you've managed 3.5 hours of The Irishman, you can easily just watch both. Moving into the realm of character depictions and motivations now. With more time dedicated to its characters and the intricacies of their lives, it's almost expected that The Departed's leads would have more complex, murky motivations, and whose psyches would be explored in depth. Infernal Affairs, meanwhile, would stick to more traditional good and bad moralities in order to streamline the storytelling. Looking at the film's visual styles, the brightly lit world of the police, and the murky greens and greys of the Triad underworld in the original, one would think that to be the case. But oddly enough, the opposite is true. Infernal Affairs' central characters spend much of the film dealing with their own fluctuating moralities. Chan is struggling to stay ethically afloat as a policeman as his criminal life threatens to completely consume him, while Lau, the film's most interesting character, also has his life changed by his undercover work. He has to contend with the idea that perhaps he actually just wants to be a good person and serve as a real, honest-to-goodness policeman. You have to remember, this is set in a world where the police are good and respected. He spends the film torn between two worlds, unsure whether he should simply drop it all and move to the side of good. This is somewhat hammered in awkwardly thanks to his author girlfriend Mary, who happens to be writing a book about a bad guy who wants to be a good guy. It's as subtle as a freight train hitting you, but you can't say the film doesn't know what it wants to say. Anthony Wong's Wong also has his moments of moral grayness, with his insistence on keeping Chan undercover despite the obvious toll it is having. These complexities give the story the feeling that it could go in any one direction, with no immediately good or bad characters who could die at any point. There is no immediately obvious happy ending for anybody. The Departed, meanwhile, prefers to keep things a little bit more clear. Leo's Costigan is more of a struggling, suffering hero cracking under the duress of his role, while Mole Sullivan comes off as self-serving, conniving, and is such a rat that he actually has literal rats kicking about his apartment. His fight for self-preservation is engaging, but in an entirely different way. In classic Hollywood style, the good guys and bad guys are made explicitly clear. Even Costigan's superiors are all very much rooted on the side of good, even if they are all massive assholes. Interestingly, while Hon Sam was arguably Infernal Affairs' most straightforward character, Nicholson's equivalent, the villainous Costello, is a man with a long history deeply steeped in the Irish-American themes of the movie. Based loosely on real-life gangster Whitey Bulger, his behavior is more complex, it strongly reflects his nihilistic views, and his motto that no one gives you anything, you have to take it. This makes his character truly horrible, but by far the most complex in the movie, and probably why he's the character most people think about when they think of this film. All of these differences come together to give us some wildly different themes and wildly different endings. Both Infernal Affairs and The Departed have strong religious undertones. The Boston Irish of Scorsese's crime world can't escape the righteous moralizing of the cross, with the film's black and white morality reflecting Christian values. The primary antagonist, Costello, actively rejects the church throughout the movie as justification for his actions. However, outside of the superficial, the Christian themes in The Departed aren't as pervasive as the Buddhist ones seen in Infernal Affairs. Ignoring its awful, oddly Christian English name, the film's original title references the lowest layer of hell, called the Unceasing Path, where sinners will suffer for an eternity. The religious themes also play heavily with the film's villain, but unlike Costello, in this case, Hon Sam is a practicing Buddhist throughout the trilogy, and his dialogue and choice of meeting spots are heavily influenced by his religious beliefs. The continuous hell from its title is referenced throughout in on-screen text, in Chan's ongoing struggles as an undercover cop, and in Lau's ultimate fate at the end of Infernal Affairs 3. These religious and thematic centers inform the way both films end, which is arguably the biggest change that the remake makes. Infernal Affairs' ending is more ambiguous and tragic. Lau survives and is seen trying to assume the identity of a cop, but his fate is left in a state of perpetual moral and psychological turmoil, which is explored in greater detail in Infernal Affairs 3, a film that is very odd, completely unnecessary, but wholly entertaining just to see Andy Lau completely unravel. This is in stark contrast to the finality that is the ending of The Departed, in which our Mole Sullivan is killed off, largely in order to give Mark Wahlberg something to do in a film where he mostly sits around and swears at people. This provides a sense of closure and moral justice that is more in line with traditional Hollywood narrative. It's less interesting for sure, but leaves nothing ambiguous for better or worse, and doesn't leave any room for any sequels, unless we want to see Marky Mark slowly unravel, but I don't think anybody wants to see that. But it's in these departures that the American version actually gets to shine and prove that The Departed isn't just a remake of Infernal Affairs, it's an adaptation. Scorsese manages to do what only a few Magnificent Sevens and Fistfuls of Dollars were able to previously: take the basic building blocks of a story and retell it within an entirely new context. This has left The Departed in a bit of a weird spot, however. As both films are so similar but so different, there isn't obviously a better one, like there is with The Ring and the Grudge films. Instead, I've noticed that the one that people watch first is likely to be their favorite. I know which one I like the most, but you tell me, what is your favorite change between the films, and which of the two is your preferred version? Sound off in the comments below. And if you want to know more about the films mentioned here, please check out theasiancinemacritic.com. See you in the next video.